Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've probably been there, right? Standing in the garden center aisle, looking at all those bags of fertilizer, bright colors, big promises, and there's that little bit of pressure, Do I just grab the usual universal bag or maybe the really expensive one? Because, well, convenience feels like it must be effective.
And that assumption right there, that's exactly what we need to kind of pull apart today. It's often a choice you make almost in the dark,
Right.
without really knowing quantitatively what your garden actually needs, or maybe even more importantly, what resources you're already making yourself,
Right.
and often paying someone else to take away.
That's the core of this deep dive, really. It all kicked off watching our friends Kesser and Steen. They were spending a whole weekend at Tante Grun's place, moving these massive piles of pruned branches, somewhere going into a proper dead hedge, the traditional way.
Good structure.
And the rest just dumped onto the compost heaps. I mean, the sheer amount of physical work was huge.
I can imagine.
And it got them thinking, and us too, really. Why pour all this effort into moving what we label as waste, only to then drive to the shop
Yeah.
and buy chemical salts in a bag to feed the very same garden? It feels disconnected.
It absolutely highlights a massive disconnect in how a lot of us approach gardening now.
Yeah.
You've got let's say, the instant gratification of the commercial bag.
Quick fix.
Exactly. High concentration nutrients right now. And then there's the free stuff, your lawn clippings, hedge trimmings, leaves in the autumn.
Stuff you often bag up and drive away.
Precisely. And most people just default to the bag because dealing with your own organic material feels like, well, a lot more work for maybe not much reward. An uncertain result.
That uncertainty is the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
So our mission today is to get right past the marketing talk, the labels, the sort of gut feelings. We want to do a real quantitative analysis. We need to actually calculate the nutritional value, that crucial NPK breakdown. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium for both options. The synthetic chemical salts, and our garden waste.
Yeah, nail down the numbers.
This whole deep dive is about figuring out how to get the maximum impact in the garden, but while really slashing the cost and honestly stopping that crazy habit of hauling valuable stuff off to the recycling center.
It's such a critical conversation because that knowledge gap is just enormous. Think about commercial farming. Nobody would dream of planting without a soil test.
Standard practice.
Absolutely mandatory. But most home gardeners, we skip it. We fly completely blind.
Now you just buy what's cheap or what looks fancy
Or maybe you think, oh, it's labeled organic manure, that must be good, without knowing what's really in it. And this leads straight to systemic problems.
Like what?
Well, rampant over-fertilization is a big one. People throw it on thick, thinking more is better,
Right.
which actually damages the soil's delicate microbiome. It causes nutrient runoff, which pollutes streams and ponds. And ironically, you often end up with weaker plants because they're stressed by, well, too much of a good thing or the wrong balance.
So we need hard data. Cold, hard numbers to make smart choices.
Exactly. Quantitative analysis.
Okay, let's start there then, with the numbers on the back.
Yeah.
The benchmark we need to potentially beat. Commercial fertilizer, you see those three numbers, NPK.
Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium.
Right. And they represent the percentage by weight of those elements in the bag. But let's be really clear here, the percentage is often surprisingly small.
That's something most people just glance over. If a bag says, say, 16,312 NPK, that adds up to 31%. Only 31% of what's in that bag is the actual nutrient claimed on the front.
So what's the rest? Nearly 70%.
Filler, inert filler material. Often it's things like clay or limestone dust, sometimes sand. It's mainly there for practical reasons.
Right.
To stop the chemical salts clumping together, caking, and also to bulk it out so you can actually spread that highly concentrated stuff evenly over a decent area.
So you're paying quite a bit for filler.
You are, significantly.
We looked at a bunch of options available online, just a quick scan. And the way they're labeled is interesting in itself.
How so?
Well, the chemical ones, they have to list the NPK by law. So you get clear numbers, 16, 3, 12, 25, 10, whatever it is.
Right, it's regulated.
But then we looked at some of those pre-packaged organic options. Bagged cow manure, chicken manure pellets.
Yeah, the ones you find everywhere.
A surprising number of them had absolutely no NPK breakdown listed on the packaging at all, just organic chicken manure.
And that right there should be a bit of a red flag for anyone thinking critically.
Why?
Because if you're choosing organic manure, you're often buying quite a bit of volume, maybe paying for delivery. And without knowing the NPK concentration, you have no idea what nutrient value you're actually getting per kilo or per bag.
You could hauling heavy bags.
Paying for the privilege, only to find the actual nutrient kick is tiny compared to, say, the grass you just mowed for free.
Okay, so let's set that benchmark then. Let's use a typical popular product. We called it Example C, a universal fertilizer, NPK 16312. Pretty standard. The instructions usually say something like, apply 2 kilograms per 100 square meters. And you maybe do that 2 or 3 times a season.
Sounds about right.
Okay, let's walk through the calculation. You take 2,000 grams of the product,
right,
spread it over 100 square meters. That works out to exactly 20 grams of the product per square meter.
Okay, 20 grams. Not a huge amount.
Not at all. Now, we need to figure out how much nitrogen is in those 20 grams. The bag says 16%.
So 16% of 20 grams.
Which is 0.16 times 20.
Which gives you 3.2 grams of pure nitrogen N per square meter.
Okay. 3.2 grams N per square meter. That's the key number.
That's our benchmark.
That's the standard dose, according to the manufacturers, for healthy growth, applied maybe a couple of times a season. That's what we need to see if our waste can match or even beat.
And here's something really important to notice about that chemical dose. 20 grams of product per square meter.
Yeah.
It's tiny. It's barely a handful. People often think of chemical fertilizers as these super powerful things you have to apply in huge amounts.
Right, because the NPK numbers look high.
Maybe. But the application rate per area is actually very small. It works because the salts are so concentrated. So the big question now is, can our seemingly weak organic stuff deliver that same small, targeted dose?
Right. Now for the really interesting bit, challenging that whole idea that our normal garden waste is just, bulky filler, not real fertilizer.
Yeah, the nutrient value.
Kesser and Steen were literally shifting mountains of branches and clippings. The common wisdom is, sure, it helps the soil structure, but it's not potent, not like the bag. So we dug into some big data sets. Research from places like UC Davis in California and agricultural institutes in Holland. They've done loads of analysis on the average nutrient content of common organic materials.
Good. Reliable averages are key here. Let's start with standard garden compost. The well-rotted stuff.
The black gold.
Exactly. Seen as the gold standard for improving soil long-term. On average, typical mature garden compost has an NPK of around 1.00.2050.
Okay, so about 1% nitrogen. By dry weight, presumably?
Yes, that's usually based on dry matter, so 1% in.
Right. Let's test that against our benchmark. 3.2 grams of nitrogen per square meter.
Okay.
If the compost is 1.0% nitrogen, that means every gram of dry compost gives us 0.01 grams of N.
Makes sense.
So to get our target of 3.2 grams then, we'd need 320 grams of bone-dry compost.
320 grams dry. But here's the catch. Fresh, ready-to-use garden compost, even if it looks dark and crumbly, it's usually still about 50% water by weight, roughly half moisture.
Okay, so you need to double the amount of the actual stuff you handle.
Pretty much. Which means, to match that 3.2 grams of nitrogen from the chemical bag, you'd need to apply about 640 grams of fresh compost per square meter.
Wow, hold on. 640 grams, that's nearly 2/3 of a kilo.
It is.
For every single square meter. If you have a decent-sized garden, that suddenly sounds like a lot of compost to make, haul, and spread.
It does sound like a lot, volume-wise. And this is probably why many gardeners think of compost mainly as a soil conditioner, not really a fertilizer in the NPK sense.
It makes the commercial bag look easier again, doesn't it, despite the filler?
Well, yes, but remember, compost is the end product of decomposition.
Right.
A lot of the really available nitrogen has already been used up by the microbes doing the work, or gassed off.
Okay.
Now, let's look at the stuff people are constantly generating and often throwing out. The fresh stuff, the green gold.
Lawn clippings.
Lawn clippings. This is where the numbers start to get really surprising.
Go on.
Fresh grass, especially if you've got a bit of clover mixed in your lawn clover, is a legume, fixes nitrogen.
Right.
Is actually incredibly potent. We're talking about a nitrogen content typically around 2%.
Right.
That's 0.02 grams of nitrogen per gram of fresh grass. Not dry weight, fresh weight.
2% fresh weight.
Okay.
Okay, so let's think volume. A standard mower catcher box, maybe 30 liters.
Yeah.
If it's loosely packed with fresh grass, maybe it weighs around 9 kilograms. We estimated about 0.3 kilograms per liter.
Okay, 9 kilos of fresh grass. Let's run the numbers on that. 9,000 grams at 2% nitrogen.
That's 0.02 times 9,000.
Which comes out to 180 grams of total nitrogen in that one single mower box.
180 grams. That sounds like a lot of N.
It is. Now let's see how much area that fertilizes to our benchmark level.
Our target is 3.2 grams N per square meter.
So take the 180 grams of N we have in the catcher, divide it by 3.2 grams per square meter.
180 divided by 3.2.
That 130-liter catcher full of grass clippings can provide that full benchmark dose of nitrogen over approximately 56 square meters.
56 square meters. From one mow, that covers a pretty decent patch of garden or lawn.
It really does. But here's the bit that blows people's minds, the visual comparison.
What do you mean?
To get that 3.2 grams NMRO dose spread over those 56 square meters, how thick do you think the layer of grass clippings needs to be?
I don't know, a centimeter. Maybe half a centimeter.
Much, much less. The calculation works out to a layer thickness of just 0.54 millimeters.
Half a millimeter.
Barely half a millimeter thick. You'd hardly even see it on the lawn or sprinkled around plants in a border.
That's incredible. So the labor involved isn't hauling huge weights like with the compost?
Not at all.
It's just lightly sprinkling the clippings as you mow.
Exactly. It reframes the whole effort calculation. The concentration is high, so the volume needed per area is tiny.
Okay, let's ramp it up again. Hedge trimmings. Kesser and Steen's big piles of branches.
Right, the woody stuff mixed with leaves.
When they were pruning bushes, small trees, it's really potent biomass, isn't it? Young growth, lots of leaves.
Very nutrient-rich, especially the leaves and young stems.
So let's imagine you took a thick layer, say 10 centimeters deep, of fresh hedge clippings. Pack down a bit.
Okay.
Maybe that's 100 liters over just 1 square meter. Let's estimate the weight and around 30 kilograms fresh weight for that volume.
30 kilos fresh weight per square meter. Dense.
Now, let's be conservative with the nitrogen. Let's assume only 1% N content for this mix of leaves and wood.
Okay, 1% of 30 kilograms.
That's 0.01 times 30,000 grams.
Which gives you an absolutely whopping 300 grams of nitrogen per square meter.
300 grams, compared to our benchmark of 3.2.
Exactly.
That was the moment Steen said he saw the numbers flashing like neon signs in his head.
I bet. It's a shocking realization.
Just think about it. A simple 1 centimeter thick layer of fresh hedge clippings, or even just grass, can theoretically deliver around 30 grams of nitrogen per square meter.
30 grams N per square meter.
That is 10 times the typical application rate you get from that commercial bag. 10 times the 3.2 grams benchmark.
The potential for self-sufficiency, just using what the garden produces, is absolutely immense when you see it like that.
Suddenly the cost comparison looks ridiculous. That bag of chemical stuff, maybe 230 kroner covering 500 square meters, the equivalent nutrient value locked up in the free clippings from a normal garden over a summer just dwarfs that cost.
Completely. And it forces you to reevaluate the labor. Is it really that much effort to spread clippings every couple of weeks when you mow?
Compared to bagging it, loading the car, driving to the tip, unloading.
Exactly. And then driving to the store to buy fertilizer. You're swapping expense and waste for a powerful, free, self-renewing resource. It's a no-brainer quantitatively.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate here. We need some caveats, right?
Always.
We've shown the potential NPK value is massive, 10 times the benchmark, potentially. But surely not all of that 30 grams of nitrogen actually gets to the plants. Doesn't some get lost, washed away, gassed off?
Yes, absolutely. Some will be lost, especially with fresh green biomass. If it heats up quickly, you can lose some nitrogen as ammonia gas.
Okay.
And some will be temporarily used by the microbes themselves as they break down the material. That's natural.
And what about the woody stuff? You mentioned hedge trimmings. If I put down thick layers of branches, won't that actually steal nitrogen from my plants while it decomposes? I've heard that can happen.
That is the absolute crucial question when you switch from simple chemical salts to complex organic matter. It brings us directly to a really important concept, the carbon to nitrogen ratio, usually written as the CN ratio.
Okay, CN ratio. Explain that for us.
Think of microbes and fungi like tiny engines. They need carbon as their fuel, their energy source.
Right.
And they need nitrogen to build their bodies, their structures. Proteins, enzymes, DNA all need nitrogen.
Got it. Carbon for fuel, nitrogen for building blocks.
Exactly. So when microbes encounter organic material, they look at its CN ratio. Fresh green stuff, like our 2% nitrogen grass clippings, has a low CN ratio, maybe around 15.1 or 25.1. That means there's plenty of nitrogen relative to the carbon.
That's easy for them.
Very easy. The microbes have more than enough nitrogen available right there in the grass to build their bodies while they consume the carbon fuel. The excess nitrogen is quickly released back into the soil in forms the plants can use. It's called mineralization.
So low CN ratio equals fast nutrient release for plants.
Correct. Now, contrast that with very woody material, things like old straw, thick branches, sawdust.
High carbon stuff.
Very high carbon. The CN ratio can shoot up dramatically, maybe 80.1, 100.1, even higher for sawdust. There's loads of carbon fuel, but very little nitrogen building material within it.
Okay, so what happens then?
The microbes get to work consuming all that carbon fuel, but they quickly realize, hang on, we don't have enough nitrogen in this food to build our own bodies and multiply.
So what do? Panic.
They scavenge. They pull in or steal any available nitrogen they can find from the surrounding environment, which is the soil solution your plants are also trying to access. This process is called nitrogen immobilization. The microbes temporarily lock up the soil's nitrogen for their own use.
So if I dug woody hedge trimmings directly into my vegetable patch,
you'd likely see your plants suffer. They might turn yellow, growth would stall for weeks, even months, because the microbes are outcompeting them for the available nitrogen in the soil.
Right, that's the warning you always hear about using wood chips in the soil.
Exactly. And this is the crucial point for our discussion. It depends entirely on how you apply it. When we talk about applying these materials as a surface mulch, laying them on top of the soil, not digging them in,
like Kesser and Steen's dead hedge, or just spreading clippings?
Precisely. We largely bypass that severe nitrogen immobilization problem for a couple of reasons.
Go on.
Firstly, the woody material stays on the surface. Decomposition is slower there, often driven more by fungi than bacteria, and it happens away from the main root zone of your established plants.
Okay.
Secondly, remember that sheer amount of nitrogen we calculated, 300 grams N per square meter, from that thick layer of hedge trimmings.
Right, the massive number.
Even if, say, 50% of that nitrogen is temporarily immobilized by microbes or lost as ammonia as the pile heats up initially, which is probably a high estimate.
You're still left with 150 grams in MF.
Exactly, which is still nearly 50 times the commercial benchmark dose. The sheer volume of nutrients in fresh biomass is so huge that even with some losses and temporary tie-up, the net benefit to the soil over time is enormous. Used correctly as a surface mulch, the potential remains immense and regenerative.
Okay, so the numbers clearly stack up in favor of using our waste.
Yeah.
We don't technically need the bag, but let's shift gears slightly. What about the hidden costs? The ecological side of just choosing that convenient chemical bag.
The difference is absolutely fundamental. It's about what you're feeding.
How do you mean?
When you apply a chemical fertilizer, those soluble salts, you're giving the plant a direct, quick hit of nutrients. It absorbs them straight away. High-octane fuel, like you said.
Yeah.
But you are essentially bypassing and potentially even harming the soil's own incredibly complex life system, the microbiome.
How does salt harm the soil life? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, think of the soil water as a solution. When you suddenly flood it with a high concentration of soluble mineral salts.
Like pouring salt on a slug. Osmosis.
Exactly that principle. You dramatically increase the osmotic pressure. Many beneficial soil microbes, and especially the delicate thread-like networks of fungal hyphae.
The good fungi.
Yes, the mycorrhizal fungi that partner with plants and the saprophytic fungi that break down tough organic matter. They are really sensitive to high salt concentrations. They get stressed, dehydrated, their activity plummets. They much prefer feeding on complex, slowly decomposing organic carbon.
So by using chemical salts, you're selecting for organisms that can handle those conditions.
You tend to favor a bacterial-dominated ecosystem. Bacteria are generally tougher, reproduce faster, and are great at consuming simple sugars and readily available nitrogen. Oh, it's huge. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer production is an industrial giant.
How's it made?
Nitrogen gas makes up nearly 80% of our atmosphere, but plants can't use it directly. It needs to be fixed into usable forms like ammonia. The main industrial method is the Haber-Bosch process.
Heard of it. Energy intensive, right?
Massively. It requires extremely high temperatures and enormous pressures. And achieving that takes vast quantities of energy, almost entirely derived from fossil fuels, particularly natural gas. It's used both as a feedstock for hydrogen and as the energy source.
So making fertilizer is directly linked to burning fossil fuels and CO2 emissions.
Directly and significantly. Manufacturing that single bag of nitrogen fertilizer releases a considerable amount of CO2. We're literally taking nitrogen from the air but burning ancient carbon reserves to do it, accelerating climate change in the process.
Whereas choosing to just spread your lawn clippings
Not only saves you money, it completely eliminates that huge external energy demand and its associated emissions. It's a closed loop.
And conversely, using that waste doesn't just avoid harm, it actively helps in multiple ways at once. Weed control, soil protection, feeding the soil life.
Exactly. When you apply a decent layer of garden waste as surface mulch, sometimes called surface composting or sheet mulching, the benefits really start to pile up.
Benefit 1. Weed suppression. Seems obvious.
Yeah, block the light, and most annual weed seeds just won't germinate. It drastically reduces weeding time.
Benefit 2. Protecting the soil surface itself.
Crucial. Bare soil gets hammered by heavy rain. The impact breaks down soil clumps, washes away fine particles, and leads to compaction. You get that hard, impermeable crust on the surface.
We call it scorp sometimes.
Or tractose is a more technical term. It seals the surface, stops water soaking in properly, prevents air exchange. Bad news all around.
But the mulch layer acts like a shield.
Like armor. It absorbs the impact of raindrops, allows water to gently trickle through, keeps the soil surface open and aerated, and prevents that crust from forming.
And benefit 3, feeding the whole system.
Right. It's not an instant hit like the salts. The nutrients are released slowly, steadily as the organic matter decomposes. This feeds the entire soil food web from the tiniest microbes and fungi up through springtails, mites, beneficial nematodes, right up to the earthworms and larger creatures.
And the earthworms are key, aren't they?
Absolutely vital. They drag the organic matter down from the surface, mixing it into the mineral soil in their tunnels. Their casts are incredibly fertile, and all that activity, the burrowing, the mixing, the sticky substances produced by microbes and fungi, that's what builds beautiful, stable, crumbly soil structure over time.
Let's zone in on specific materials, too. Kesser and Steen had lots of young branches and leaves. You called that ramial mulch earlier.
Yes, ramial chipped wood, technically. It usually refers to the younger, thinner branches, maybe less than about 7 centimeters or 3 inches in diameter, often chipped along with their leaves.
What's special about that?
It's particularly rich in minerals. Trees concentrate a lot of their essential minerals, not just NPK, but calcium, magnesium, trace elements in the actively growing parts, the young wood, the bark layer, cambium, and especially the leaves.
So we're not just getting nitrogen from our waste, we're recycling a whole range of minerals.
Precisely. And ramial wood is notably rich in calcium.
Calcium through.
Why is calcium so important?
It's crucial for strong cell walls in plants, which helps with disease resistance. It's also vital for long-term soil chemistry, improving structure. Research has shown that plants grown with a steady supply of available calcium are much less susceptible to common problems like botrytis, gray mold on strawberries, or blossom end rot on tomatoes.
Which is often linked to calcium deficiency, right?
Often a calcium transport issue within the plant,
Mm-hmm.
but having readily available calcium in the soil is the first step to preventing it. This slow-release calcium from the ramial mulch is incredibly valuable.
Okay, this leads to a neat idea, an integrated system. We know grass clippings are super high in nitrogen.
Low CN ratio, but maybe not so high in calcium. So, could we balance that?
Easily. Think about kitchen waste. What's a common waste product that's almost pure calcium?
Eggshells.
Eggshells. They are about 95% calcium carbonate. If you crush them up, maybe whiz them in an old blender to get a powder or small fragments,
Yeah.
and mix them in with your grass clippings when you apply them as mulch, you're essentially giving your soil a free liming treatment alongside the nitrogen boost.
Free line.
Exactly. Applying that mix, especially in the autumn, is perfect. The winter weather, the rain, the freezing and thawing cycles helps to slowly break down the calcium carbonate, making the calcium available to the soil and plant roots by the time spring growth really kicks in.
That's brilliant. You're closing the loop. Kitchen waste feeds the garden, which feeds the kitchen.
Total nutrient cycling, self-sufficiency in action.
Understanding the timing seems really important here. Chemical fertilizers are pretty much instant, right? Rain dissolves the salts when plants take them up.
Pretty much, yeah. Very fast acting.
But this organic mulch, this surface composting, it's a slower process. When should people realistically expect to see the benefits kicking in?
Okay, so let's say you apply a good thick layer, maybe grass clippings mixed with some shredded leaves or hedge trimmings in late autumn, after your last big cleanup.
Right.
Initially, as the soil temperature drops, say below 10 degrees Celsius, which is usually late October, November time, depending where you are,
Microbial activity slows right down.
dramatically.
Yeah.
The bacteria and fungi populations don't die, but their metabolic rate slows way down. So the rate of decomposition decreases significantly over the coldest winter months.
So does it just sit there looking messy all winter?
Not entirely idle. Firstly, earthworms and other larger soil critters can still be active, especially if the ground doesn't freeze solid. They'll pull bits of leaf litter down into their burrows. Secondly, the winter moisture is key. Rain and snow help to soften and leach the leaves and soft green material. It collapses, darkens, starts to lose its structure, and integrates physically with the soil surface. Thin green stuff, like grass clippings, can actually be mostly processed, visually gone, within maybe 4 or 5 months, even through winter.
But the tougher stuff, the twigs, the ramial wood chips.
They'll persist much longer. Those thicker stalks, the woodier bits, they act as a longer-term, coarse organic matter source. They might take a full year, maybe even longer, to break down completely. But that's not a bad thing. That slow breakdown provides sustained food for fungi and contributes to stable soil structure.
So when does the big nutrient release happen?
The real surge in activity happens in the spring. As the soil warms back up consistently, hitting that sweet spot of maybe 8 to 10 degrees Celsius.
March, April time.
Usually around then, yes. That's when the fungal networks really wake up and expand rapidly. The bacteria populations explode too. They get to work intensively on whatever soft, easily digestible material is left from the autumn application. That's when you get the major flush of mineralized nutrients becoming available for spring plant growth.
That's actually a great thing for listeners to observe directly in their own gardens.
Definitely.
Go out in, say, April or May and look closely at an area you mulched thickly the previous autumn. You'll likely see that the grass clippings and soft leaves have vanished, almost melted into the soil. But the small twigs, the woodier bits, they're still clearly visible, maybe looking a bit darker and softer. It's a perfect visual lesson in decomposition rates based on CN ratio.
Absolutely. Soft green waste, low CN, goes quickly. Tough woody waste, high CN, takes time.
And this whole process, this building up of organic matter on the surface, is particularly transformative for certain challenging soil types, isn't it? Especially sandy soils.
Oh, sandy soil is where surface mulching with organic matter truly shows its power over the long term. It addresses the fundamental problems of sand.
Let's remind ourselves what those problems are. Sandy soil, it's the bane of many gardeners.
Right. Large particles, big gaps between them. So water drains through incredibly quickly, like a sieve.
Taking nutrients with it.
Exactly. It has very poor water retention and very poor nutrient holding capacity. Things leach out almost immediately after rain or watering. Plants struggle with drought and constant hunger unless you're feeding them constantly.
Often needing those chemical fixes just to survive.
Yes. Now, bring in the surface mulch. Firstly, that physical layer on top acts like a sponge.
Ow.
It cushions the impact of rain, preventing compaction. It shades the soil, reducing evaporation. And the organic material itself holds moisture. So it keeps the soil surface damp for much longer, releasing water more gradually down into the sand. It changes the whole water dynamic immediately.
Okay, that's the surface effect.
Yeah.
But the real magic happens underneath, right? As it breaks down.
That's where the fundamental structure changes. We need to quickly touch on something called cation exchange capacity, or CEC.
Sounds technical. Keep it simple.
It's pretty straightforward. Plant nutrients, many of them, exist in the soil as positively charged ions. They're called Korschjunktions. Think potassium, K+, calcium, K++, magnesium, Mg++.
Okay, positive nutrients.
CEC is basically a measure of the soil's ability to hold on to these positive nutrients, to stop them being washed away by water. It's like the number of parking spots the soil has for positive nutrients has a very, very low CEC. Sand particles themselves are mostly inert quartz. They have very few negatively charged sites on their surface to attract and hold on to those positive nutrientations.
So nutrients check in, then check out immediately, no parking.
Pretty much. They just wash straight through. Now, introduce organic matter. As that mulch decomposes, it forms humus. And humus is incredibly complex, made of large organic molecules that are covered in negative electrical charges.
Ah, so the opposite charge attracts.
Exactly. Humus dramatically increases the soil's CEC. It creates loads and loads of negatively charged parking spots. These negative sites on the humus grab onto the positive nutrient cations, K plus K plus plus plus, MM plus plus, and hold them tightly, preventing them from leaching away.
But the plants can still get them.
Yes, through various exchange processes at the root surface. The humus acts like a nutrient bank, holding onto the nutrients until the plant makes a withdrawal.
So the organic mulch isn't just adding nutrients.
It's fundamentally changing the soil's ability to store nutrients. It's building the infrastructure for fertility. It turns that leaky, sandy sieve into a nutrient-retentive sponge.
That's the crucial long-term structural change. You're not just fertilizing, you're building better soil from the top down.
That's the power of consistent surface composting, especially on sand. Over several seasons, you will physically see and feel the difference. The top layer becomes darker, richer, holds water better, supports more life. You're transforming the soil's very nature, using labor and waste instead of money and chemicals.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. Let's consolidate the big aha moments from this deep dive.
There have been a few.
First, the numbers. We quantify the nitrogen potential of what most people call garden waste. That commercial benchmark, 3.2 grams of nitrogen per square meter.
Yeah.
It gets absolutely demolished by the potential in ordinary grass clippings or hedge trimmings. We're talking potentially 10 times that amount from just a thin layer.
The numbers are undeniable once you calculate them.
Second, this flips the script on effort and cost. Collecting and spreading your own clippings isn't just free fertilizer. It's often less overall work and environmental impact than bagging waste, driving it away, and then buying chemicals. It's a model for genuine self-sufficiency.
It moves you from being a consumer of industrial products to a producer of your own fertility.
And third, it's not just about NPK, it's about soil health. Chemical salts feed the plant directly, sure, but they neglect or even harm the soil ecosystem. Whereas organic mulching feeds the entire soil food web, builds structure, improves water retention, increases that cation exchange capacity. It builds resilience from the ground up.
Which brings us to maybe the most provocative takeaway, the real core difference between these two approaches.
Okay.
It boils down to this. Are you just feeding the plant in isolation, aiming for a quick fix, often with hidden energy costs and potential downstream pollution?
The chemical path.
Or are you choosing to feed the entire incredibly complex soil ecosystem, the fungi, the bacteria, the worms, the whole web, which in turn supports the plant naturally and builds a fertile, healthy, resilient soil for the long term?
The organic self-sufficient path.
One path is about short-term extraction and dependency on an energy-hungry industrial process. The other is about long-term regeneration, building ecological capital, and closing loops within your own garden. It's a fundamentally different philosophy.
So the final thought for you listening right now. You now know the hidden NPK superpower lurking in your lawnmower box and pruning pile. You know it can easily beat the commercial targets. You understand it builds soil structure, holds water, boosts nutrient storage through things like CEC. So the question is, armed with this knowledge, what specific area of your garden, maybe a patch of tired lawn, a nutrient-hungry vegetable bed, the ground under your fruit trees, what area will you target first this coming autumn? Where will you start laying down that waste to begin building that rich, resilient, self-sufficient soil structure for next year and beyond?